The phone call that would change everything came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my corner office, 43 floors above downtown Chicago, reviewing quarterly reports when Dad's name flashed across my screen. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. Our relationship had become a shell of what it once was: obligatory holiday texts, awkward lunches twice a year where we ran out of conversation after 20 minutes. But something made me answer. "Emma, we need to talk about the wedding." No greeting, no "how are you," just straight to business as always. I set down my pen, watching the clouds drift past my window. "What about it?" "Carol and I have been discussing the guest list." His voice carried that particular tone I'd learned to recognize over the years, the hesitation before delivering news he knew would hurt. "Her business associates are flying in from all over the country. Very important people in the marketing world. CEOs, creative directors, industry leaders." I waited. Let him say it. "You know, Carol's company is at a critical growth stage. First impressions matter in her industry. She needs this wedding to reflect a certain image." My hand tightened around the phone. "Just say it, Dad." "We think it would be best if you didn't attend." The words came out in a rush. "Carol wants to keep things classy, sophisticated. Her friends are all very successful, and you're still—" He trailed off. "Still what?" "You know what I mean, Emma. You're 32 and you rent an apartment. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. You work some vague government job that you can never really explain. Carol's friends, her colleagues, they're going to wonder why my daughter isn't more accomplished." The words hung in the air like poison. I'd heard variations of this my entire adult life, but it never stopped stinging. After Mom died when I was 19, Dad had remarried within 2 years. Patricia, wife number 2, had made it abundantly clear that I was a disappointment. That marriage lasted 5 years before ending in a bitter divorce. Now, at 61, he'd found Carol. 15 years his junior, ambitious, image-obsessed, and apparently embarrassed by my existence. "You're uninviting me from your wedding," I said flatly, "because your fiancé thinks I'll make her look bad." "Don't be dramatic. We're just trying to maintain a certain standard. You understand how important this is for Carol's career. Her business is everything to her. This wedding is essentially a networking event. Having you there, with your situation, it would raise questions." My situation, as if I were some kind of problem to be managed. "Emma, please, you're an adult. You have to understand that sometimes we make sacrifices for the people we love. Carol needs this wedding to be perfect. Her company, Prestige Marketing Group, is on the verge of major expansion. She's worked incredibly hard to build her reputation. I'm asking you to support that." I thought about the weekly calls I'd fielded from Dad over the past 3 years, the ones where he'd casually mentioned Carol's business struggles, the ones where he'd suggested, almost offhandedly, that I might know someone who could invest. The way his voice had brightened when I told him I'd found someone willing to provide capital. "So you want me to stay away from your wedding?" I said quietly. "The wedding that's 3 weeks away. The wedding I already bought a dress for." "I'll reimburse you for the dress. This is just how it has to be. Carol's friends are flying in from New York, Los Angeles, Miami. These are people who matter in her world. You have to understand." "I understand perfectly, Dad." "Good. I knew you'd be reasonable about this. You've always been the understanding one, not like your brother would have been." My brother. The golden child who died in a car accident at 24, leaving Dad to pour all his disappointed expectations onto me. The son who could do no wrong, even in death. "Is there anything else?" I asked. "No, that's it. We'll catch up after the honeymoon. Maybe we can do lunch or something." "Congratulations on the wedding, Dad." I hung up without waiting for his response. For a long moment, I sat in silence, staring at my phone. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up my encrypted email. My fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. To Marcus Chin. marcus.chin@silveroakcapital.com. Subject: Immediate action required. Prestige Marketing Group. Marcus, effective immediately, withdraw all capital from Prestige Marketing Group. Dissolve the partnership. Trigger the exit clauses and ensure all funds are returned to our holding company within 48 hours. I want every dollar out. No grace period, no negotiations. Emma. I hit send and closed my laptop. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Marcus Chin, my investment manager and one of the few people who knew the full scope of my financial portfolio. Emma, I just got your email. Are you sure about this? That's $2.7 million in active capital. Prestige Marketing was showing strong growth metrics. I'm sure. This will effectively collapse their expansion plans. They're leveraged pretty heavily against our backing. Without it, they'll have to— I know what it will do, Marcus. Execute the withdrawal. There was a pause. Marcus had been managing my investments for 8 years. He knew better than to question my decisions twice. Consider it done. The paperwork will be filed within the hour. They'll receive notification by end of business day. Thank you, Marcus. I set my phone down and returned to my quarterly reports as if nothing had happened. The story of how I became wealthy enough to casually withdraw $2.7 million isn't particularly dramatic. There was no lottery win, no inheritance from a distant relative, no lucky cryptocurrency investment. It was simply a matter of being in the right place at the right time with the right skills. After Mom died, I'd thrown myself into my studies, computer science and applied mathematics at MIT, paid for by scholarships and Mom's modest life insurance policy. Dad had been too consumed with his new wife, Patricia, to pay much attention to my academic achievements. He certainly didn't notice when I graduated summa cum laude. He didn't come to the ceremony, said he had a conflict with Patricia's sister's wedding, or when I was recruited by a specialized government contractor. The work was classified. Even now, I can't discuss the specifics, but I can say that I became very, very good at identifying patterns in complex data systems. And I can say that the government pays extremely well for certain types of expertise, especially when that expertise helps prevent rather large and expensive problems. By 25, I was earning more than most senior executives. By 28, I'd saved enough to start making strategic investments through a network of holding companies and trusts. By 30, my portfolio was worth $47 million. Now, at 32, I was worth somewhere north of $180 million. I still rented my apartment because I liked the building and saw no reason to deal with property maintenance. I still drove my Honda because it was reliable and I had no desire to attract attention. I still worked my government job because I found the work intellectually satisfying, and it gave me purpose beyond simply accumulating wealth. My family knew none of this. To Dad, I was still Emma the disappointment. Emma who never quite measured up to Jason's memory. Emma who worked some boring government desk job and would probably never amount to much. I'd considered telling him the truth 1,000 times. But after Patricia, after watching him choose a new wife's comfort over his own daughter's feelings, I decided that some things were better kept private. I wasn't hiding my success out of shame. I was hiding it as a test. Would Dad love me for who I was? Or would he only value me for what I had? With Carol, I'd gotten my answer. 3 years ago, when Dad had started dating her, he'd been practically giddy. Carol was successful, attractive, ambitious, everything Patricia hadn't been. He'd introduced us at an uncomfortable dinner where Carol had spent most of the evening name-dropping her clients and discussing her company's growth trajectory. "We're really at a pivotal moment," she'd said, swirling her wine. "If we could just secure the right investor, someone willing to commit real capital, we could expand into 3 new markets within a year." She'd look at me expectantly, as if I might suddenly produce a wealthy friend from my purse. "That sounds exciting," I'd said blandly. Dad had jumped in. "Emma, you work in government contracting, right? Do you ever meet people with money? The kind who might be interested in investing?" I'd taken a sip of water. "I might know someone." That someone, of course, was me. Through one of my holding companies, I'd structured a $2.7 million investment in Prestige Marketing Group. The terms were favorable to Carol, generous even. Low interest, flexible repayment terms, minimal oversight requirements. Dad had been thrilled when I told him I'd found an investor willing to back Carol's expansion. He'd hugged me for the first time in years. Carol had been effusive in her gratitude, though she'd never bothered to ask too many questions about where the money came from. People rarely do when you're handing them millions. The investment had been profitable. Carol was talented at what she did, even if she was insufferable as a person. Prestige marketing had grown substantially over the past 3 years, opening offices in 2 new cities and doubling their client roster. But business is business, and family is family, and sometimes those two things can't coexist. The first domino fell at 4:47 p.m. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Emma, did you tell Carol's investor something? She just got a call and she's losing her mind." I didn't respond. At 5:15 p.m., another text. "This isn't funny. Carol's business is in serious trouble. Her backer is pulling out. Do you know anything about this?" I muted his conversation thread. At 6:30 p.m., my office phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. "Emma Anderson?" A woman's voice, tight with barely controlled panic. "This is Carol Westfield, your father's fiancée. We need to talk, now." "About what?" "Don't play games with me. My CFO just received notice that our primary investor is withdrawing $2.7 million in active capital, effective immediately. We're scrambling to understand how this happened and who approved this. Your father seems to think you might know something about it." I leaned back in my chair, watching the sun set over Chicago's skyline. "Why would I know anything about your business arrangements, Carol?" "Because you are the one who found the investor 3 years ago. You connected us. You have to know who they are." "I knew someone who was interested in investing, that's all." "That's all?" Her voice rose sharply. "That's all? Do you have any idea what you've done? This withdrawal will torpedo our expansion. We've already committed to new office leases, hired staff, signed client contracts based on having this capital available. Without it, we're going to—" She stopped abruptly. "I need you to contact this investor. Tell them there's been a mistake. Tell them we'll renegotiate terms if necessary." "I don't think they're interested in negotiations." "You don't think? Emma, this is my company. We're talking about my life's work. You need to fix this." "I don't need to do anything, Carol." Silence stretched between us. When Carol spoke again, her voice was ice. "This is about the wedding, isn't it? You're doing this because we uninvited you." "That's an interesting theory." "You petty, vindictive little—" She caught herself. "Your father was right about you. He said you never accomplished anything, and now I see why. You tear other people down because you can't build anything yourself." I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Is there anything else, Carol?" "You're going to regret this. When my lawyer finds out who this investor is, when we trace these funds, you're going to wish you'd never—" I hung up. My phone immediately started ringing again. Dad's number. I let it go to voicemail. Then Carol's number. Voicemail. Dad again. Voicemail. Finally, I turned off my phone, packed up my briefcase, and went home. The voicemails piled up overnight. By morning, I had 17 messages. I listened to them over coffee in my apartment, each one more desperate than the last. Dad's first message. "Emma, please call me back. Carol is beside herself. Whatever's happening with her investor, we need to figure this out. She's talking about postponing the wedding." His third message. "I don't understand what's going on. Carol's lawyer says the investment was structured through something called Silver Oak Capital Management. That name means nothing to me. Emma, if you know these people, please help us." His seventh message. "Carol showed me the withdrawal notice. It's signed by someone named Marcus Chin. Do you know him? Emma, please. I'm begging you. This wedding is in 3 weeks. Carol's company is falling apart. I need you to help fix this." His 15th message, time-stamped at 2:47 a.m. "I know you're angry about the wedding invitation. I understand. But this is bigger than that. Carol's worked her entire adult life to build this company. You can't let it collapse because of a family disagreement. That's not who you are." I deleted all the messages and went to work. The next 2 days passed in a blur of increasingly frantic contact attempts. Dad showed up at my apartment building, but the doorman turned him away when I instructed that I wasn't receiving visitors. Carol tried to reach me through my work email, which I blocked. Dad's sister, my Aunt Michelle, called to lecture me about family loyalty. "I don't know what's going on between you and your father," she said, "but Carol is collateral damage here. Her business doesn't deserve to be destroyed because of a family spat." I agree, I said. Businesses shouldn't be destroyed because of family issues. People shouldn't be uninvited from weddings because they're considered an embarrassment either. Wait, they uninvited you from the wedding? Ask Dad about it. I hung up. By day 4, the story had apparently spread through the family. My phone lit up with calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all wanting to know what had happened and why I was sabotaging Carol's business. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, none of them had cared about my life, my accomplishments, or my feelings. Now, suddenly, I was important enough to warrant family-wide intervention. On day 5, everything changed. I was in a meeting with my government team when my personal cell phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Your father and Carol just showed up at the Silver Oak offices. Security has them in the lobby. They're demanding to meet with the principal investor in Prestige Marketing Group. What do you want me to do? I excused myself from the meeting and called him. How did they find the office? I asked. The withdrawal notice had our corporate address. They hired a private investigator who tracked the LLC structure. They're threatening legal action if we don't meet with them. I checked my watch. 2:30 p.m. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't engage until I arrive. You're coming here? Time to end this, Marcus. I grabbed my briefcase and left the building. Silver Oak Capital Management occupied the 42nd floor of a glass tower in Chicago's financial district. The offices were understated but elegant. Dark wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of Lake Michigan. It was the kind of place that whispered money rather than shouting it. When I stepped off the elevator, I could hear Carol's voice echoing through the marble lobby. This is absurd. You can't just refuse to meet with us. We have a contractual relationship with your firm. We have rights. The security guard stood impassively by the reception desk. Ma'am, as I've explained, no one from our investment team is available without an appointment. Then get us an appointment. Today. Right now. Dad stood beside her, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen him. He wore a suit that was slightly rumpled, and his tie was askew. He noticed me before Carol did. Emma? He blinked, confused. What are you doing here? Carol spun around. Did you follow us? How did you— I work here, I said simply. The lobby went silent. You work here? Dad repeated slowly. At an investment firm? Not exactly. I turned to the security guard. Thank you, David. I'll take it from here. I walked past them toward the secured door that led to the main offices. I pressed my palm against the biometric scanner, and the lock disengaged with a soft click. Emma, wait, Dad said. I don't understand. What is this place? Why are you— I held the door open. Would you like to come inside and talk, or would you prefer to continue shouting in the lobby? They followed me through the door, down a hallway lined with offices, to the corner suite at the end. The nameplate beside the door read, Emma J. Anderson, Principal Partner. Carol saw it first. Her face went white. That can't be— I unlocked the door and gestured for them to enter. My office was larger than my apartment. One wall was entirely glass, offering an unobstructed view of the Chicago skyline and Lake Michigan beyond. The other walls held framed credentials, my MIT degrees, several commendations from government agencies with portions redacted for security classification, and a Forbes 30 Under 30 feature from 2 years ago that Dad had apparently never seen. On my desk sat a single photograph, Mom, smiling, from the year before she died. Dad stood in the doorway, staring. Emma, I don't understand. Sit down, Dad. You too, Carol. They sank into the chairs across from my desk like sleepwalkers. I remained standing, silhouetted against the window. 3 years ago, I began, Dad mentioned that Carol needed an investor for her business expansion. I agreed to help. Through this firm, through a structure of LLCs and holding companies, I personally invested $2.7 million in Prestige Marketing Group. Carol's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The terms were generous: minimal interest, flexible repayment, almost no operational oversight. I wanted the business to succeed. I wanted you to be happy, Dad. You? He shook his head. But how? You're a government employee. You drive a Honda. You rent an apartment. Where would you get $2.7 million? I'd been doing specialized consulting work since I was 23. My particular skills are valuable to certain agencies, very valuable. Over the years, I invested wisely. This firm manages my portfolio, along with several others. Current assets under management, approximately $180 million. My personal net worth is in the same range. The silence that followed was absolute. Carol found her voice first. You're lying. This is some kind of scam. You're not worth $180 million. That's impossible. I pulled open a desk drawer and removed a leather portfolio. From it, I extracted several documents and laid them on the desk. Bank statements from 3 different institutions, investment summaries, property holdings. Yes, plural. I owned 4 properties across 3 states that I rented out. Stock portfolios, government contract summaries, redacted for classification but showing payment amounts. Dad reached for the papers with a shaking hand. His eyes moved across the numbers, disbelieving. "This is real," he whispered. "This is actually real." "It's real, Dad. But why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because I wanted to know if you'd love me for who I was, not what I had." I met his eyes. "And I got my answer on Tuesday, when you called to uninvite me from your wedding." The words landed like a physical blow. Dad flinched. "Emma, I didn't mean it like that." "You said Carol wanted to keep things classy, that her business friends would wonder why your daughter wasn't more accomplished. You said I'd raise questions because of my situation." I was trying to protect Carol's reputation. Her business was everything. Her business that I was funding. My voice remained calm, but each word was precise, surgical. The business that wouldn't exist in its current form without my money. The expansion into Atlanta and Denver? My capital. The new office renovations? My capital. The marketing campaign that landed 3 Fortune 500 clients? My capital. Carol had gone from white to gray. "You can't pull that investment. We have a contract. We have rights." I picked up another document from my desk. "Actually, according to Section 14.3 of our investment agreement, I can withdraw funding immediately if certain conditions are met, specifically if there's a material change in the business relationship or if I determine that continued investment no longer aligns with my portfolio strategy." "That's a technicality," Carol snapped. "No court would..." "Every court would uphold it. My lawyers wrote that contract. Your lawyers signed it. You were so excited to get the funding that you barely read the terms." Dad stood up abruptly. "Emma, please, let's talk about this rationally. The wedding invitation, we can change that. You can come. Of course you can come." "I don't want to come anymore, Dad." "Then what do you want? Money? We can pay you back the investment over time. We'll restructure, "I don't want your money." I walked to the window, looking out over the city. I wanted a father who valued me. I wanted to be invited to his wedding, not because I'm secretly wealthy, but because I'm his daughter. I wanted to matter. "You do matter." Dad's voice cracked. "Emma, you've always mattered." I turned to face him. "Did I? When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you asked about my life, my work, my happiness? You only called when you needed something, when Carol needed an investor, when you wanted advice on Patricia's divorce settlement, when you needed someone to listen to your problems." "That's not fair. I've been dealing with a lot. The divorce, rebuilding my life, finding Carol. And I've been building an empire. Alone." The words came out harder than I intended. "Do you know what it's like to achieve something remarkable and have no one to share it with? To make your first million and realize that telling your only living parent would just make them see you differently. Not better, just differently." "You should have told me," Dad said quietly. "I'm your father. I deserve to know." "Did you?" I challenged. "Would it have changed anything? Would you have suddenly become interested in my life? Or would you just have started asking for money?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Carol stood up, her composure finally shattering. "This is insane. You're punishing an entire business, people who depend on their jobs, because your feelings were hurt." "I'm withdrawing my investment from a business whose owner publicly considers me an embarrassment. That's not punishment. That's just good business sense. You're destroying me. Do you understand that? Her voice cracked. Without this capital, I'll have to lay off 30 people. I'll have to cancel contracts. My reputation in the industry will be ruined. Your reputation was more important than my feelings when you decided I wasn't classy enough for your wedding, I said calmly. I'm simply applying the same logic. Emma, please. Dad stepped toward me. I know I've been a terrible father. I know I've let you down more times than I can count. But don't do this to Carol. She doesn't deserve this. Did I deserve to be uninvited from my father's wedding? No. His voice broke. No, you didn't. You deserved better. You've always deserved better, and I failed you. Tears were running down his face now. After your mom died, I fell apart. I know I did. I was so lost in my own grief that I forgot you were grieving too. And then Patricia, and all the drama with that marriage, and I let you slip away. I let years pass without really seeing you. And now you see me because I have money. No, he shook his head emphatically. Now I see you because I'm finally looking. Really looking, and what I see is an incredible woman who accomplished everything on her own, without any help from me. I see someone strong and brilliant and successful, and I realize that I had nothing to do with any of it. You did this yourself, Emma, and instead of being proud, instead of celebrating you, He broke down completely, shoulders shaking with sobs. I told you not to come to my wedding. I stood very still, watching my father cry. Somewhere inside me, something shifted. Not forgiveness exactly, but something softer than the cold anger I'd been carrying. The money is withdrawn, I said quietly. That decision stands. Carol made a sound like she'd been struck. But Carol, I continued, I'll give you 30 days to find alternative funding. I'll have Marcus draw up a bridge loan with reasonable terms to cover your immediate obligations. After 30 days, you're on your own. Carol sighed with relief. Thank you. I'm not doing this for you, I interrupted. I'm doing it for your employees who don't deserve to suffer because of this situation. I turned to Dad. As for the wedding, I meant what I said. I won't be attending. I understand. He wiped his eyes. Emma, I know I can't fix everything with one conversation, but I want to try. I want to be a real father to you, if you'll let me. That's going to take time, Dad. A lot of time. I know. I'll wait as long as it takes. They left my office 20 minutes later with a promissory note for a bridge loan and the names of 3 potential alternative investors Marcus had identified. Carol's business would survive, though it would take her years to rebuild to the same growth trajectory. I stood at my window long after they'd gone, watching the city lights begin to flicker on as dusk settled over Chicago. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. That was intense. Are you okay? I'm okay, I typed back. Thank you for everything. Any time, boss. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing, both the withdrawal and the bridge loan. I smiled at my phone. Marcus had always been more than just an investment manager. He'd been a friend when I had precious few of those. The wedding was postponed 2 weeks later. Dad called it off entirely, actually. He left a voicemail explaining his decision. It didn't feel right, his voice said through the phone. Getting married while my relationship with my daughter is broken. Carol understood. We're still engaged, but we're waiting, taking time to figure things out. I saved the voicemail. I wasn't sure why. Aunt Michelle called to apologize. Apparently, Dad had told the whole family what happened. The real story. Not just about the money, but about the wedding invitation, about Carol's words, about everything. I'm so sorry, Emma, she said, her voice thick with emotion. If we'd known, your father should never have let this happen. Your family, you should always be included. Thank you, Aunt Michelle. Several other relatives reached out, some apologetic, some just curious about my success. I ignored most of them. The ones who'd never cared before didn't suddenly deserve access to my life now. But I did accept Aunt Michelle's invitation to lunch. She'd always been kind to me, even when others weren't. We met at a quiet cafe, and she told me stories about Mom that I'd never heard before. It felt good to connect with that part of my past. 3 months later, something unexpected happened. It was a Sunday morning. I was in my apartment drinking coffee and reading the news when my building's doorman called. "Ms. Anderson, there's a gentleman here to see you. Says he's your father. He has coffee and bagels. Should I send him away?" I hesitated. 3 months of silence since that day in my office. 3 months of avoiding his calls, letting his messages pile up unheard. "No," I heard myself say. Tell him I'll be down in 10 minutes." When I stepped out of the elevator into the lobby, Dad was standing by the window, holding 2 coffee cups and a paper bag. He looked nervous. Older, somehow. There were new lines around his eyes that I didn't remember seeing before. "Hi," he said simply. "Hi, Dad. I brought your favorite, hazelnut latte, extra shot, and cinnamon raisin bagels from that place on 5th Street. I remembered you used to love those." I took the coffee he offered. It was still hot. "You remembered." "I'm trying to remember a lot of things, Emma. Things I should have paid attention to all along." We stood in awkward silence for a moment. The lobby felt too public, too exposed. "Do you want to take a walk?" I asked. Relief flooded his face. "I'd like that. Very much." We walked to the park 2 blocks away. It was a crisp October morning, leaves turning gold and red, the air sharp with the promise of coming winter. For the first 10 minutes, neither of us spoke. We just walked, sipping our coffee, navigating around joggers and dog walkers. Finally, Dad broke the silence. "I've been coming here every Sunday for the past month," he admitted, "standing in your lobby with coffee and bagels. Every week the doorman turns me away. Every week I leave the coffee with him and go home." I stopped walking. "You've been doing this for a month?" 5 weeks, actually. I figured eventually you might say yes, or maybe you wouldn't, but I needed to try. I needed you to know that I'm not giving up on us." Something tight in my chest loosened slightly. "Why didn't the doorman tell me?" "I asked him not to. I didn't want you to feel pressured. I just wanted to be there, waiting, in case you were ready." We sat down on a bench overlooking a small pond. Ducks glided across the water, oblivious to the human drama unfolding on the shore. "Carol and I broke up," Dad said quietly, 3 weeks ago. I turned to look at him, surprised. "I thought you were just postponing the wedding." "We were, but the more time passed, the more I realized she wasn't angry about losing you. She was angry about losing the money. When I told her I wanted to rebuild my relationship with you, make it my priority, she said I was being ridiculous, said you'd manipulated me, that you were trying to control my life through guilt." He shook his head. "I finally saw what you must have seen all along. She didn't love me. She loved what I could give her, the connections, the stability, the image, and she wanted you gone because you didn't fit that image." "I'm sorry, Dad." "Don't be. You did me a favor. A painful favor, but a favor nonetheless." He took a sip of his coffee. "She's found new investors, by the way. The business is recovering. She'll be fine." "Good. I never wanted to destroy her completely. I just needed her to understand consequences." "You taught us both about consequences." His voice was heavy with regret. "Emma, I've spent the last 3 months thinking about everything. Every choice I made after your mom died, every time I chose my own comfort over your needs, every milestone I missed." "Dad, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. I need to say this." He turned to face me fully. "I wasn't there when you graduated from MIT. I wasn't there when you got your first job, when you made your first million, when you accomplished things most people only dream of. I wasn't there because I was too wrapped up in my own life, my own problems, my own need to feel young and successful through my relationships." Tears were forming in his eyes again. "Your mom would be so ashamed of me. She loved you so fiercely, Emma. She had such dreams for you, and she would have been so proud of everything you've become. I know she's looking down, proud of you and disappointed in me." My own eyes stung. "Mom would want us to fix this." "Do you think we can?" His voice was small, hopeful, afraid. I thought about it, really thought about it. The years of hurt, the missed moments, the feeling of being unwanted by the one parent I had left. Could that be healed? Could we start over? "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'm willing to try. If you're really committed to this, Not for a few weeks or months, but for real. I am, he nodded emphatically. Emma, I know I can't undo the past 13 years. I can't get back the time I wasted. But I want whatever time we have left. I want to know you, the real you. Not the disappointing daughter I invented in my head, but the brilliant, accomplished, amazing woman you actually are. It's going to take time, Dad. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. I know. That's why I'm here. That's why I'll be here next Sunday and the Sunday after that, and every Sunday for as long as you'll let me. We sat in silence for a while, watching the ducks. It wasn't comfortable exactly, but it wasn't painful either. It was something in between. A beginning, perhaps. A tentative first step. After 30 minutes, I stood up. I should get back. I have work to do. Dad's face fell slightly, but he nodded. Of course. Thank you for taking the walk with me, Emma. It means more than you know. I hesitated, then made a decision. Next Sunday, same time, same coffee order. His face transformed. The hope that bloomed there was almost painful to witness. Really? Really. But Dad, don't mess this up. I won't. I promise you, Emma, I won't. I walked away, but before I reached the park entrance, I turned back. He was still sitting on the bench, watching me, clutching his empty coffee cup like it was precious. I raised my hand in a small wave. He waved back, a smile breaking across his face. The second Sunday, I came down after 5 minutes instead of 10. Dad was waiting in the same spot by the window, same coffee, same bagels. When he saw me, his whole face lit up, like he'd been genuinely worried I wouldn't show. You came, he said, relief evident in his voice. I said I would. We walked the same route to the park. This time, the silence was less awkward, more contemplative. Tell me about your work, Dad said as we settled onto our bench. I mean, I know you can't share classified details, but what can you tell me? What does your day-to-day look like? It was such a simple question, but it was the first time he'd ever asked. I told him what I could, about the patterns I identified, the problems I solved, the satisfaction of preventing disasters that would never make the news because they never happened. He listened intently, asking thoughtful questions, genuinely engaged. You're making a real difference, he said when I finished. Your mom would be so proud. She always said you had a gift for seeing things others couldn't. She said that? All the time. From the time you were little, putting together puzzles meant for kids twice your age, figuring out how things worked just by looking at them. She used to say you had a special kind of genius. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'd forgotten those moments, or maybe I'd buried them with all the other painful memories of losing her. I wish I could talk to her now, I said softly. Tell her about everything. Get her advice. She'd tell you to follow your heart, but protect it fiercely, Dad smiled sadly. She'd tell you that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not the person who hurt you. And she'd tell you that family is worth fighting for, even when it's hard. We sat with that for a while. When we parted that day, our goodbye was a little less awkward, almost natural. The third Sunday, we walked for an hour. Dad told me about his own week, his job as a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. Nothing glamorous, but steady work that he found meaningful. He talked about his colleagues, his challenges, his small victories. He treated me like someone who mattered, whose opinion he valued. I've been seeing a therapist, he admitted as we circled the pond for the second time. Since the breakup with Carol, I needed to understand why I keep making the same mistakes in relationships, why I pushed you away. What have you learned? That I've been running from grief for 13 years. Your mom's death destroyed me, Emma. I never properly dealt with it. I just kept moving forward, filling the emptiness with new relationships, new distractions. Patricia, then Carol. I was so afraid of being alone with my pain that I forgot I wasn't actually alone. I had you. He stopped walking, turned to face me. I abandoned you when you needed me most. You lost your mother, and then you effectively lost your father too. I'm so sorry, Emma. I'm so deeply, profoundly sorry. I felt something crack open inside me, the wall I'd built around my heart, brick by careful brick. I forgive you, Dad. The words surprised me, but once I said them, I knew they were true. I'm not saying everything is fixed, but I forgive you. He pulled me into a hug, A real one, tight and warm and desperate. I hugged him back, and for the first time in 13 years, it felt like I had my father again. The fourth Sunday, we talked about Mom for 2 hours straight. Dad told me stories I'd never heard, how they met in college, her terrible sense of direction, the way she sang off-key in the shower, how she cried at every single movie, even the comedies. We laughed and cried and remembered her together, and it felt healing in a way I hadn't known I needed. "She made me promise something," Dad said as we sat on our bench, the late autumn sun warm on our faces. "Right before she died. She made me promise I'd take care of you, make sure you knew how loved you were, support your dreams." His voice broke. "I broke that promise. I failed her, and I failed you." "But you're here now," I said quietly. "You're trying. That counts for something." By the sixth Sunday, it had become routine. Not just something we did, but something we both looked forward to. Dad started texting me during the week. Nothing heavy, just small things. A funny meme, an article he thought I'd find interesting, a photo of something that reminded him of Mom. I started texting back. It wasn't the relationship we'd lost. It was something new we were building together. Something honest and real and fragile, but growing stronger with each passing week. 2 months in, Dad asked if I'd be willing to have dinner with him sometime. Not just coffee and bagels, but a real meal, a real conversation. I said yes. We met at Mom's favorite restaurant. The place had closed down years ago and reopened under new ownership, but they still served her favorite dish. Lemon chicken with roasted vegetables and wild rice. We ordered it and raised our glasses of water in a toast. "To Mom," Dad said, his voice thick with emotion. "To Mom," I echoed. "And to second chances, to second chances." Over dinner, Dad asked about my life beyond work, my hobbies, my friends, my dreams for the future. He asked about my properties, my investments, my philanthropic interests. He wanted to know everything, and not because he wanted something from me, but because he genuinely cared. "I've been thinking about the money," he said carefully as we finished our meal. "All these years I thought you were struggling, I thought you needed help, and now I find out you've been more successful than I ever dreamed of being." "Does it bother you?" I asked. "That I have more than you?" "No," he shook his head firmly. "It makes me proud, and it makes me realize how little I actually knew about you, how much I missed while I was busy being disappointed in a version of you that never actually existed." "I'm not perfect, Dad. I have flaws. I can be cold and calculating. I hurt Carol's business to punish her, even knowing it would affect innocent people. You also gave her a bridge loan to protect those people," he pointed out. "You were angry and hurt, but you still did the right thing in the end. That's not cold, Emma. That's human." We talked until the restaurant started closing, the servers politely clearing tables around us. As we stood to leave, Dad pulled me into another hug. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it." "Maybe not," I agreed, "but I'm giving it to you anyway." 8 months into our Sunday routine, Dad called me on a Wednesday evening. Not his usual quick text, but an actual phone call. "Hey, Dad, everything okay?" I answered, a flutter of worry in my chest. "Everything's fine. Great, actually. I wanted to talk to you about something." I settled onto my couch, sensing this was important. "I'm listening. I've been seeing someone." He said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "Nothing serious yet, we've only been on a few dates, but I really like her, and I wanted you to know before it goes any further. After everything with Patricia and Carol, I wanted to be upfront with you." My first instinct was defensiveness. Another woman who would come between us, who would push me aside. But I took a breath, remembering the progress we'd made. "Tell me about her." "Her name is Linda Hoffman. She's a retired elementary school teacher. We met at a community center where I've been volunteering. She was organizing a book drive for underprivileged kids." He paused. "She's nothing like Patricia or Carol, Emma. She's kind, grounded, has no interest in social climbing or business empires. She just makes me laugh, makes me feel like myself." "How long have you been seeing her?" 3 weeks. We've had 4 dates. Coffee, dinner, a walk through the botanical gardens, and last weekend we went to a poetry reading. I could hear the smile in his voice. I know poetry reading doesn't sound like me, but she loves poetry, and I wanted to try something new. Turns out I actually enjoyed it. You sound happy, Dad. I am, but I don't want to do anything that might damage what we've rebuilt. You're my priority, Emma. You always should have been. So if you're not comfortable with this, if you need more time— Dad, I interrupted gently, I want you to be happy. If Linda makes you happy, I'd like to meet her. When you're ready. Really? The relief in his voice was palpable. Really. But take your time, don't rush it. Thank you, Emma. That means everything to me. 6 weeks later, Dad called again. So, I know this might be too soon, but Linda and I have been getting more serious, and she's expressed interest in meeting you. I've told her all about you, about your work, about how brilliant you are. She'd love to have dinner with us. No pressure at all, but if you're open to it— I thought about it. 8 months ago, I would have said no immediately, but now I trusted Dad's judgment a little more, and I trusted that he wouldn't let someone push me aside again. Okay, let's do dinner. Somewhere casual. How about that Italian place near your apartment? Bella Notte? That works. This Saturday? Perfect. 7 o'clock. Emma, thank you, really. Saturday evening, I arrived at Bella Notte 5 minutes early, my stomach tight with nerves. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, not too formal but not too casual. I wanted to make a good impression, which surprised me. Apparently, despite my reservations, I cared what Linda thought of me. Dad was already there, sitting at a corner table with a woman I immediately recognized from the warmth in her eyes. Linda was in her mid-50s, with silver-streaked brown hair pulled into a loose bun, laugh lines around her eyes, and a cardigan that looked handmade. She looked comfortable in her own skin, in a way that neither Patricia nor Carol ever had. When she saw me, she stood up with a genuine smile. Emma, it's so wonderful to finally meet you. Your father talks about you constantly. Her handshake was firm, warm. I hope you don't mind. I ordered us some garlic bread to start. Your dad mentioned it's your favorite here. We sat down, and the conversation flowed naturally. Linda didn't pry into my work or my finances. Instead, she asked about my interests, my favorite books, what I like to do on weekends. She shared stories about her 30 years of teaching 3rd grade, the students who'd kept in touch, the small moments that made her career meaningful. I retired 2 years ago, she explained. I thought I'd miss the classroom terribly, but honestly, it's been liberating. I've had time to volunteer, to read all the books I never had time for, to finally take that pottery class I'd been putting off for years. Pottery? I asked, intrigued. Oh, it's terrible. She laughed, a full-bodied sound that made me smile. Everything I make looks like a lumpy bowl, but I love it anyway. The process is meditative, grounding. Dad watched her with such open affection that it made my chest tight. This was different from how he'd looked at Patricia or Carol. There was no performance here, no trying to impress, just genuine happiness. Emma, your dad tells me you went to MIT, Linda continued. That's remarkable. I had a student once, brilliant little girl named Sophia, who I just knew would end up at a place like that. Kids like you and her, you see the world differently, see patterns and possibilities the rest of us miss. You sound like my mom, I said without thinking. She used to say something similar. Linda's expression softened. Your dad's told me about her. She sounds like she was an extraordinary woman. I'm sorry you lost her so young. Thank you, she was. I want you to know, Linda said, her tone becoming serious. I'm not trying to replace her, or replace anyone. I'm just grateful to have met your father at this stage in his life, and I'm grateful that you've given him a second chance. That takes real courage and grace. I looked at Dad, who was watching me anxiously. He's told you everything? I asked Linda. About the wedding invitation, the investment, all of it, yes, she nodded. And honestly, Emma, I don't blame you for what you did. I probably would have done the same thing. Family should protect family, not use them. I felt something relax inside me. This woman, this kind, grounded woman, understood. She didn't judge me for my actions. She didn't see me as vindictive or cruel. I like her, I said, looking at Dad. He exhaled, a sound of pure relief. Yeah? Yeah, I turned to Linda. But I have to ask, you know about my financial situation. Does that bother you? Make you see me differently? Linda tilted her head, considering the question seriously. Does it bother me that you're successful? Absolutely not. Does it change how I see you? Only in that it makes me respect you more. You achieved something remarkable without anyone's help. That takes intelligence, discipline, and strength. Why would I be bothered by that? Some people see money and that's all they see. I spent 30 years teaching 8-year-olds, Linda said with a smile. I learned pretty quickly how to see past the surface. Your father didn't tell me about your money to impress me. He told me because it's part of your story, part of the journey you two have been on. But it's not who you are, Emma. It's just something you have. She gets it, Dad said quietly, looking at me. She gets what I failed to see for so long. The rest of the dinner was easy, comfortable. Linda told funny stories about her former students. Dad shared embarrassing moments from my childhood that I'd forgotten, but Linda's laughter was so warm that I didn't mind. We talked about books, movies, current events, everything and nothing. As we finished dessert, Linda excused herself to use the restroom. The moment she was out of earshot, Dad leaned forward. So, what do you really think? I didn't make him wait. I think she's wonderful, Dad. She's genuine, kind, and she makes you happy. I can see it in your face. She does make me happy, but Emma, I need you to know, you come first, always. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or pushed aside, Dad! I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I don't feel that way. Linda's not trying to replace me or compete with me. She just seems like a good person who cares about you. She is, and she really does want to get to know you, not because of who your father is, but because you're you. When Linda returned, I made a decision. Linda, would you want to join us for our Sunday walk sometime? No pressure, but I'd like to spend more time with you. Her face lit up. I would love that, absolutely. And so our Sunday routine expanded. Sometimes it was just Dad and me, our original tradition. But often, Linda would join us, and those mornings took on a different energy. She'd point out birds we'd never noticed, tell stories about her students, ask thoughtful questions that made both Dad and me think more deeply. One Sunday, about a month after that first dinner, Linda brought a photo album. I hope this isn't overstepping, she said as we sat on our usual bench, but your father mentioned that you don't have many photos from before your mom died. I'm a bit of a photography enthusiast, and I thought, maybe you'd like to look through some pictures of your parents that your dad shared with me. He's been telling me so many stories, and I wanted to help preserve those memories. She opened the album, and there they were. Mom and Dad, young and in love. Me as a baby, a toddler, a child. Jason, my brother, grinning in Little League uniform. Family vacations, birthday parties, ordinary moments that had become precious because they were gone. Where did you get these? I asked, my voice thick. Your dad had them in boxes in his attic, Linda explained. After Patricia left, he couldn't look at them. Too painful. But with my help, we went through them together. Sorted them, organized them. There's another album for you at his place if you'd like it. I looked at Dad. His eyes were red-rimmed. I couldn't face them alone, he admitted. But Linda helped me remember that these aren't just painful memories. They're beautiful ones, too. Your mom, Jason, you as a kid, that was real. That mattered. I turned the pages slowly, Linda and Dad sharing stories about each photo. There was Mom on her wedding day, radiant. There was Jason at 5, missing his front teeth. There was me at my 8th grade science fair, holding a first-place ribbon, Mom's arm around my shoulders, both of us beaming. You looked just like her, Linda said softly, pointing to a photo of Mom in her 20s. Same eyes, same determined set to your jaw. Everyone always said I looked like Dad. You have his coloring, Linda agreed. But your spirit? That's all your mother. Your father's told me how fierce she was, how brilliant, how she fought for what mattered. That's you, Emma. I felt tears sliding down my cheeks. Dad put his arm around me, and for once I let myself cry freely. Not from pain or anger, but from grief finally acknowledged, memories finally honored. The months continued to pass. Spring arrived, then summer. Our Sunday walks became an anchor in my life, something I looked forward to all week. Dad and Linda's relationship deepened, and I watched him become someone I barely recognized. The man who'd been so focused on image and success had transformed into someone content with simple pleasures. Coffee on the porch with Linda, volunteering at the community center, long conversations about books and ideas rather than business deals and social climbing. One evening in July, Dad invited me to dinner at his house. When I arrived, I found the table set beautifully, candles lit, and Linda cooking in the kitchen. "I hope you don't mind," she said, stirring something that smelled incredible. "Your dad mentioned your mom's recipe for chicken marsala was your favorite. I found the recipe card in his things. Thought I'd give it a try." I felt a lump in my throat. "You made Mom's chicken marsala?" "I tried to. No guarantee it'll taste the same, but your dad's been coaching me." She smiled. "He remembers exactly how she made it." At dinner, the chicken marsala tasted almost exactly like I remembered, close enough that it brought tears to my eyes, different enough that it didn't feel like Linda was trying to replace Mom's memory. "This is perfect," I said. "Thank you, Linda." After dinner, as we sat on Dad's back porch watching fireflies, Dad cleared his throat. "Emma, there's something I want to ask you, and I want you to feel completely free to say no." I set down my wine glass. "Okay." "Linda and I have been talking about getting married." He glanced at Linda, who smiled encouragingly. "Nothing big, nothing fancy, just a small ceremony at the community center. Maybe 20 people, close friends, family, and we'd really like you to be there. Not just as a guest, but as my best woman, if you're comfortable with that." I looked between them. Dad, nervous and hopeful, Linda, patient and kind. "I'd be honored," I said. Dad's eyes filled with tears. "Really? Really? When?" "September, the 15th, the autumn equinox. Your mom always loved fall." He reached for my hand. "I know I don't deserve this, Emma. I know I haven't earned the right to have you stand beside me, but it would mean the world to both of us." "You've been earning it every Sunday for the past year," I said. "Every conversation, every honest moment, every time you've shown up. You've been earning it, Dad." Linda wiped her eyes. "You're remarkable, Emma. Both of you are. The fact that you found your way back to each other, that takes courage most people don't have." "Mom would want this," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "She'd want us to be happy, to be a family again, even if it looks different than before." Dad pulled me into a hug, and Linda joined us, and for the first time since Mom died, I felt like I was part of something whole. The wedding planning was simple, collaborative, and nothing like the elaborate affair Dad had planned with Carol. Linda insisted on keeping it small and meaningful. They wrote their own vows. They chose Mom's favorite flowers for the decorations. They asked me to give a reading during the ceremony. I chose a poem Mom used to recite to me when I was little. Something about love being patient, about second chances, about how the best parts of life often come after we think we've lost everything. 1 week before the wedding, I took Dad to lunch, just the two of us. "I have something for you," I said, sliding an envelope across the table. He opened it, confused. Inside was a check for $50,000. "Emma, I can't. It's not for you. It's for the community center where you and Linda met. For their literacy programs. I know Linda's passionate about getting books to kids who need them. Consider it a wedding gift." September 15th arrived wrapped in soft gold light, the kind of early autumn morning that feels like a promise. The leaves hadn't fully turned yet, but hints of amber and crimson edged the trees around the community center. The air smelled like apples and fresh paper, books from the literacy room mingling with the flowers we'd arranged the night before. It was perfect, quiet, honest, exactly right. Dad stood near the front of the room, adjusting his tie for the 5th time. He looked peaceful. Not the polished, restless man I'd grown up watching, but someone grounded, present. Someone who had learned how to breathe again. Linda waited just outside, bouquet in hand, Mom's favorite flowers, tied with a simple ribbon. No veil, no dramatic entrance, just her steady smile and calm strength. When the music started, I took my place beside Dad. "You okay?" I whispered. He nodded, eyes shining. "Because you're here? More than okay." Linda walked in and the room softened around her. Dad didn't cry at first. He just smiled, wide and unguarded, the kind of smile that comes from being fully known and fully accepted. The ceremony was small, but every word mattered. They spoke about choosing each other not out of loneliness, but out of gratitude, about honoring the past without living inside it, about love that doesn't erase loss, but makes room for it. When it was my turn, I stepped forward with the poem in my hands. My voice shook at first, then steadied. I read about patience, about love that waits, about how the heart can break and still make space for joy again. I felt Mom there, not as an ache, but as warmth, approval, peace. When Dad and Linda said their vows, they promised honesty over perfection, presence over pride, and kindness above all else. No grand declarations, just truth. "I do," Dad said, his voice firm. "I do," Linda answered, just as certain. They kissed, the room applauded softly, and something inside me settled into place. At the reception, coffee, pastries, laughter echoing through the center that had quietly changed all our lives, Dad pulled me aside. "You didn't have to do the donation," he said gently. "I wanted to," I replied. "It's where you found each other, where this new chapter started. It felt right." Linda joined us, placing a hand over mine. "You know," she said, "families aren't made by replacing what was lost. They're made by carrying it forward." I nodded. That's what this feels like. Later, as the sun dipped low and guests began to leave, the three of us sat on the steps outside. Fireflies flickered in the distance, just like that night in July. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel heavy. It felt open. Grief hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed. It had become memory, meaning, love that still mattered. Mom mattered, Jason mattered, the past mattered, and so did this new, imperfect, beautiful version of family. As Dad and Linda stood to leave, Dad squeezed my hand. "Thank you for finding your way back to me," he said. I smiled. We found our way back to each other. And as I watched them walk into the evening, hand in hand, I realized something quietly powerful. Some endings aren't endings at all. They're beginnings, finally ready to begin.